welcome to Clash of the Rams, the sports talk show. I'm your host, Jeremy Hayes. Along with me, we have Jared Doherty.
Hello.
Ryan Chevy Chevalier's back, everyone.
Like in the words of Michael Jordan, I'm back.
Alrighty. Eric Russo. Alright, guys, we're going to get started. And last night was one of the more interesting Super Bowls we've seen in about 10 years because it was actually a blowout for Seattle. So, guys, just give me your thoughts on what you think of this one-sided game. Jared?
Well, first take, I think, honestly, the first thing you have to take from this is if you can get to Peyton Manning, he will choke. He will collapse. He will puke on himself. And that's what happened. Seattle has a prolific defense. They pressured him, something New England could not do. So when you pressure him, he caves into the pressure, and then he just throws it, hikes it up, and then we have a pick six. So that's the big key right there is Seattle was able to get pressure on Peyton Manning, and he couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, overall, Seattle was so physical in that game, and they're just a great team. I mean, they just took receivers like Baldwin, and they just made this great team around Russell, and now you have this great defense, and you just see the results. That was a blowout game.
I'm shocked that the game was basically over on the first play. The first play, the snap over Peyton Manning's head for a safety, and it was basically like the game was over. Seattle dominated every second of that game. It was a butt-kicking of epic proportion. They dominated from beginning to end. It's amazing. Last week I said I thought Seattle would win. I don't think I ever thought that they would dominate the way they did in that game. But we did talk about last week that the defense and the secondary of Seattle would be too much for Peyton Manning to handle. He didn't have anything like that all year long, and he throws a pick early, he throws the pick six, and when you get to him, like Jared said, it makes a huge difference. We talked about the secondary, but the pressure that they got on Peyton Manning was a huge factor. He wasn't comfortable all game long. They were in his face, and you see what happens when Peyton Manning gets pressured. When any quarterback gets pressured, it's a different story. And last night, Seattle just dominated.
Yeah, we absolutely touched upon it last week. We said Peyton Manning this season has not faced a defense of that caliber. And when he was faced with it, he absolutely choked on himself. It was Denver could not do anything on defense, offense, special teams. It was pitiful. And that's what we just saw. We talked about this all last week, all of this. Even though I picked Denver to win, we're gonna act like that didn't happen. Because the whole episode I talked about how Seattle has the advantage. I just picked Denver because I thought it was gonna be a pass interference call or whatever. Because that's the NFL. That's the way NFL is going. Is more based not letting defenders touch receivers, and that's what I thought was gonna happen. And I was shocked of how physical Seattle's defense was, and they overpowered Denver. They really did.
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with the front line, and you had Averill had a huge game for Seattle. He had a pressure on Manning where he threw a pick, and just overall, you just build around that defense, and you have the great running back in Marshawn Lynch, and you have an overall outstanding team. You have a team like the 2001 Patriots. You have a team with that is just built around their defense, and then on the other side you have Denver, and Denver all season they've been getting away with kind of a soft defense because they don't have to have a great defense with Manning, but it's definitely showed in the playoffs because their secondary couldn't stop Russell Wilson for anything.
Wow.
I'm a little rusty.
Yeah, I think what we all learned from this game is that Seattle is the best team in the NFL, and I think San Francisco right there is the second best. I really do think that.
If we can go off that and go back to what you were saying, how they were basically using Manning and riding on Manning to win games. Manning didn't show up for the big game again, so I want to start off with you, Eric. What do you think of Manning and his legacy?
I'm sick of hearing all week about that this game didn't matter to Peyton Manning's legacy. Super Bowls matter. To the greatest players in the game, you're telling me that what happened last night didn't affect Peyton Manning's legacy. I think you're crazy if you think that. It absolutely affects his legacy. There's no question about it. He's 1-2 in Super Bowls, and when the pressure comes, he can't handle it. He did against New England because it was like a Sunday afternoon, literally, easy day off for him. He could just stand back there and do whatever he wants. Got a little pressure on him last night. You see what happens. He did not look comfortable all game long, and it just shows that in these big games, maybe he's not as good as Tom Brady. He simply isn't. That's just the way it is. The legacy thing is a big factor. I don't care what anybody says. It shows that he's not at the level of Joe Montana. He's not at the level of Tom Brady. He couldn't win that second one last night. The 2 Super Bowls that he's lost, he was terrible. He was awful in both of them. He won the first one. Give him credit for that. He's won one, but he's not on that level of winning multiple Super Bowls because he just doesn't play well enough in the big games.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And for current players today, what's happening is you're going to see who's the best, Brady or Manning, and that's going to come up again. And because Manning didn't win this game, you have Brady with 3 Super Bowls, Manning with 1, and there you go. That's going to be your main argument. I mean, Manning has the skills, the assets, just beat Brady's 50-touchdown season, but it's the fact that you can't win the big game. That's where the big dance is. That's where everyone wants you to win, and that's where Tom Brady probably comes out on top. So there's where his legacy's hurt. Still a Hall of Famer, though.
Of course.
Of
yeah.
course.
Jared?
Yeah, Hall of Fame doesn't mean much to me right now. I mean, Troy Aikman, after the game, had one of the most, I lost all credibility to he lost all credibility when he said that this game does not affect Peyton Manning whatsoever. How do you even say that? How does the same person that's even has an NFL broadcasting career now even say that? Of course it does. He choked in the game where he really needed to step up. The whole entire week, the 14 days leading up to it, it was all about Peyton Manning. Can he step up? His legacy, that was the top story. And he comes into the game, and from the opening snap, it was right away a ridiculous show of Peyton Manning. Absolutely he choked. Absolutely this hurts his legacy. There's no going around that.
And just to say, nobody's saying Peyton Manning's not a great quarterback. Nobody's saying he's not one of the greatest of all time. Nobody's saying that he's not a Hall of Famer. He is all of those things. But when you compare him to the very, very best, the top 3, 4, 5 guys of all time, he's not there because he doesn't do it in the greatest of games. Yes, Seattle played phenomenally on defense. They got to him, give them credit. But the bottom line is Peyton Manning does not live up to the hype consistently enough in the biggest of games, and the Super Bowl is the biggest game that you can possibly play, and he's 1-2. Bottom line.
And the biggest joke of it all is that he threw 280 yards, and his media followers, the media lovers, are all just going to praise him make excuses for him. They've been making excuses for him every year when he collapses, when he goes 1 and done in the playoffs, and this is just going to be another example. He throws 280 yards, and they're going to try pulling that off he did pretty good, but they won't mention the pick six. They won't mention him missing receivers downfield and just everything that went wrong with that game. And they're not going to, but they're going to keep making excuses for Peyton Manning, and that's what Peyton Manning's career is. Because people who are in with him are too afraid to criticize him because he's a great guy in the media. But you can go.
Well, I mean, just based off that, I will make a little excuse for Manning that the team overall played horrible. Denver, their line, he was pressure all night. And I will say he only made one errant throw that I could think of where he missed.
I think
down
he made
the
a couple.
middle.
He missed. There were a lot of drops.
Yes,
there,
but the interception is what I mean. And then a lot of 15 incompletions during the game. He wasn't perfect Manning, but that pressure, he's never been perfect.
Listen,
Manning
when your team is the best offense in the team and you're the quarterback of that team, you need to go out and be perfect, and he was not. He was against New England, but not against a good defense.
And you have
Just
one more thing to add.
final thing I'll say is that defense still wins championships.
I know.
It's been proven, looking the last 10 years
4
or so.
out of 5.
The Rams in 01 against the Patriots in 07, the Broncos this year. Great all-time offenses. They all lose in the Super Bowl.
And before we move on, 10-11 playoff record. No, it's now 11-12 playoff record.
Most losses.
And you're not even the best of your time. You can't argue that you're the best of all time. I think that's what we learned.
Turn on ESPN, you'll learn about all the excuses.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you're going to hear.
All right, well, we're going to move on to NHL. NHL's going on, actually. Now that all the Super Bowl hype's done, we move on to NHL. I know. So, guys, overall, the Bruins playing pretty well. Maybe a little problems in the goal situation, goalkeeper. But, Jared, I'll let you start off. What do you think the Bruins are doing right now?
I already have this figured out. I think the Bruins in the East are at the top, them and Pittsburgh. Them and Pittsburgh are the top. But what I really want to hit you on is Montreal. You saw it again on last Thursday. When Montreal faced the Bruins, I think they are the only team in the East that can put up a fight against them and really slow them down. They blocked every shot. Montreal is going to be the test. And then if you want to compare the East to the West, the Bruins are probably the top team in the East against the West, but the West is filthy. And I still think the two top teams in Chicago, I think Chicago will always be the top right now. And then Anaheim is still pulling through, but I will stay. Call me crazy, but I'm already making the prediction now that the Stanley Cup is going to be the Bruins Chicago again. I think those are the two top teams in the NHL.
That was my prediction before the year, but you make a great point about Montreal. The Bruins have so much trouble playing against a team that's quick and fast and offensive-minded. They're 0-4-1 in their last 5 against Montreal. Tuukka Rask is 2-10-2 in his career against Montreal. Not a good recipe for success. You don't want to play them in the playoffs, but I think a lot of people feel that it is Bruins and Penguins again for the Eastern Conference title. I think a lot of people think it's Bruins Chicago again. That was my pick going into the year because the West is stacked, like Jared said, but Chicago is they're just the best team.
I want to go off of that with what you said. You said the Bruins and Penguins, and notice how Jared said Bruins right away. Is anybody giving the Penguins a shot up against a physical team? Because in the past, it doesn't seem
I really do not give the Penguins any credit. Last year, I would admit that I thought Pittsburgh was going in there. In the regular season, Pittsburgh is like Denver. They're a regular season team, but in the playoffs, when you can really match up against them, they cave. They really are not that physical a team, and I don't think they can compete with a physical team like the Bruins or Montreal.
Jared's absolutely right. I was going to say that. It's like
Broncos.
Like the NFL. It's not all about the offense. It's not all about the stars. It's not all about the superstars. We saw it in the playoffs last year. The Bruins absolutely killed the Penguins in that 4-game sweep. They showed that it's about more of a team, more about defense, more about good goaltending, which Pittsburgh doesn't have on a consistent basis. But to touch on the goaltending with the Bruins right now, Tuukka Rask is struggling. He's overworked, and now he's going to go play in the Olympics for Finland, and he's not going to get the 2 or 3 week break that he probably needs. Chad Johnson has had to play 4 of the last 8 games, and he's been good, but you need Tuukka Rask if you want to win the Stanley Cup. You need him to be what he was last year. You need him to be like what Tim Thomas was in 2011, and he's shown that he can do that. But right now, he's overworked. He played way too much earlier in the year. The Bruins rode him way too much early on, and it's showing now. He's been pulled 4 times in his last 16 starts, which is unheard of for Tuukka Rask. So they need to get that under control. I think they're in a good spot, though, overall, going into the Olympic break next week. They've won 6 of 8. They had a little stretch where they had all those injuries that they struggled, but they're leveling off. They're healthy. Adam McQuaid's the lone injury that they have. They're going to hopefully trade for a defenseman right out of the Olympic break and kind of set their eyes on the playoffs once we get back from the break.
That is the big key right there, is filling a void to even half of what Seidenberg provided. They really do need to fill that void, and if they can't do it, I think Chicago will run away with this. The Bruins do need another person to step up, and it's a very slim market right now for a defenseman like that. I really don't think there's a lot of great options, but they need something.
All right, well, we got...
real quick, guys, been looking at standings and everything, and the Bruins are, doing what they always do, and then you had the Blackhawks. I was actually surprised by Anaheim, because I saw they were in top of their division, and but yeah, I think I agree with you. It just looks like the two dominant teams, Blackhawks and Bruins, probably.
But overall, the West is way better than the East.
Overall, yeah, I'd say so. All right, well, we got to move on to the NBA now. And so far, NBA's kind of a lopsided season, just like a hockey lopsided season. Durant's becoming a superstar. He's kind of competing with LeBron James this year for MVP. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about Durant's performance this season, and I'm going to start off with the man who's going to name his kid after Larry Bird, Jared Doherty.
There we go. I mean, you all know my opinion on the NBA, and Kevin Durant, that's impressive. 12 games, 30 points, that is impressive. It really is. You got to give him the credit, but that's seriously, the NBA, it's just so many bad teams, and the West, it's the Western Conference, right?
Yeah, Western.
East and West,
yeah.
That's what we're doing here. Yeah, the Western Conference is just, if you look at the East, it's just a pit of, it's hard to even look at other than Miami, and I'm sure there's other few talented. Yeah, I don't. But still, it's just the West is so much more, I can't even think of the word. The NBA is not my thing, but seriously, Kevin Durant, that's impressive. We're just going to go off that. The NBA is just not my thing. Celtics should tank. Text loser, let's go. Seriously.
I have to say that this is one of the most impressive streaks I've ever seen from players. Kevin Durant, I watched him a few nights ago against Brooklyn. 8 of 9, 22 points at halftime. Like, stats don't get that good. I mean, he's just playing unbelievable, and he's passing around, making assists. And right now, I mean, he is showing that he's better than LeBron right now. And LeBron is on a team that's more of a, you have more great players around him, but it's the fact that Kevin Durant has to be the #1 guy, especially with Westbrook out, and he's completely cherished that role.
I was going to say, aren't a lot of guys on that team injured? So it's like he really does need to step up.
Yeah.
I've been paying attention a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think we're seeing kind of a changing of the guard a little bit. I know Oklahoma City's been there for a few years now. They've been to the finals, but Kevin Durant is becoming the dominant player in the league. The streak that he was on is incredible. The Heat, they're still there. LeBron is still there. They're going to be there in the East because the East is pitiful. It's a disgrace.
Ridiculous.
I mean, I look at the standings in the East, once a week or so just to see what's going on, and it's just amazing how bad a conference can be when you only have 2 or 3 teams above 500. There's just absolutely no parity in that league. The league that is now without David Stern, who is gone after 30 years in the league this week. But that's something that the NBA has a huge problem with, is parity. And I think in the West, it's a much better picture of seeing good teams against good teams. You don't see it in the East, but Kevin Durant and Oklahoma City, that's the premier team. I think that's the team to beat. I think Durant's on his way to an MVP. I think everything to beat is with Oklahoma City right now.
And going off of that, and the fact that the West is the dominant conference, that only makes his performance even more impressive, that he's playing a lot of Western teams and he's performing really well. But just to round out the whole end of the argument is that Durant is obviously having a better season than LeBron, but we're also seeing the dominant player in the NBA being a shooter, being a guy that'll take it to the basket, assist. He does it all compared to LeBron.
This is a quick stat that I've seen. Kevin Durant is averaging 32 points a game at home, and he's averaging 31 on the road. So it's just consistency that you don't see from any other NBA player, really. But LeBron is shooting, he's shooting 58% from the field.
Exactly, that's the impressive thing, because it's not like LeBron's having a bad season. It's the fact that Durant's just dominating the league right now. All right, well, we're going to wrap up the show with our Ram rants, and Jared, I'm going to start off with you, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, what I want to touch upon is something that's not being said enough. Is last night, if you were on Twitter, Facebook, social media, you really saw everyone having it for Peyton Manning, just having a field day, mimicking Peyton Manning and all that. But don't forget, just do not forget that that Denver team, that guy Peyton Manning, he destroyed and embarrassed your New England Patriots. He absolutely had a field day against that team. So you really need to think about this, is what does New England have to do in the offseason? Do they go out and get an offensive talent or a defensive talent? Because Seattle is now proving that defense wins championships. And I think San Francisco is the second best team. I'd put New England down there. I don't think they're in the top 5 right now. So that's what I want. That's just my rant for now. Just Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, you guys, this team, the Patriots way, needs to go out the books because you have not won anything in 9 years. It's going on 10 seasons. And Peyton Manning just destroyed your team and then got embarrassed in the Super Bowl. So the gap between Seattle and New England is way higher, and Seattle is the most dominant team. The team should build to be that.
I feel like your Rammerts are just trying to start to debate with everybody every week. All right, but we're going to go to Ryan. Go ahead.
I'm going to talk about Paul Gasol being on a trade block for the Lakers. And I don't know what the Lakers have been doing with their franchise. Every year they're going down more and more. Kobe Bryant, of course, is injured and been suffering through injuries. But it's the fact that I want to compare them to the Celtics because I'm a Boston guy. But it's the fact that we've gotten some prospects. You have to build towards the future through the draft. And the Lakers, you can't just trade guys and make guys through salary. And this is what happens. And now they're trying to trade with the Suns and make it work out. The Suns are also the talk of the NBA. What a team they've been this year. But it's the fact that you can't build a team around salary caps and then have older players go down. And now they look like they're going to have a disastrous year for next year.
All right, Eric.
All right, I'm going to talk about a little college hockey. I've done this before in Ram Rants, but tonight is one of the most exciting, one of the best sporting events in Boston all year long. It's the Beanpot at TD Garden. Northeastern and Harvard, BC and BU, unfortunately, playing in the semifinals tonight instead of an opportunity to play in the finals next week. But it's one of those great underrated sporting events in Boston every year. College hockey is probably the biggest anywhere in the country. Here in Boston, it's our little prized possession that not a lot of people can enjoy. We enjoy it. It's going to be great tonight with the 2 games. It's always one of the things that I look forward to most. In February, football's over. We're kind of in that lull in between. The Red Sox haven't started spring training yet, so this is a nice thing. The first 2 Mondays in February, the Beanpot, Boston's college hockey showcase tonight.
All right. I'm going to go someplace that we usually don't go, and that's boxing, randomly. I just want to talk about how Floyd Mayweather Jr. has not fought anybody as usual, if you guys follow boxing. He's been ducking Manny Pacquiao for years, and he's like hinting at, oh, maybe it'll happen, like, oh, I don't think it should happen, but maybe it'll happen in the future. And I think it just shows how boxing has gone so downhill as a sport that we're actually talking about little welterweight guys and who they're going to fight. Because honestly, if we're going to say that Floyd Mayweather Jr. is like the best fighter, I've made the argument before, the reason why he's not big time in America is the fact that he's not a heavyweight. If you see Floyd Mayweather walk up to you, you're not going to be intimidated by a 5'7" guy that like try and act tough with like 20 guys behind him. That's his crew. You need to get your Mike Tyson, your Muhammad Ali, the guy that's going to be mean to you all up in your face. But we don't have that right now. We're working with Floyd Mayweather Jr., and I just think we need eventually to find that American heavyweight guy to get boxing back into the game.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, interesting. We got college hockey, boxing.
Boxing, there we go.
Some random stuff. All right, that's all we got for this week. Great having Chevy back. Hopefully we can get you back on some more.
Yeah.
All right, that's all from us at Studio 73. We'll see you guys next time.